I've always been a light sleeper. My wife used to call it a gift. I used to agree with her. We moved into the house in early March. Nothing remarkable about it. 3 bedrooms, a long upstairs hallway, the kind of place that feels lived in before you've unpacked a single box. My daughter Mara had just turned 4. She picked the room at the far end of the hall because she liked the window. Said she could see our garden from there. I installed security cameras about 2 weeks after we moved in. Not because anything felt wrong, just habit. I mounted one on the front door, another on the back porch, and one at the top of the stairs, angled down the hallway. It covered the whole length, from the landing all the way to Mara's door at the far end. The app sends an alert to my phone whenever it detects motion. That's how it started. The first night, 3:01 to 12 a.m. The first alert came on a Thursday. I remember because I had an early call in the morning and I was already sleeping badly. My phone buzzed on the nightstand at exactly 3:12 a.m. I pulled up the live feed. The hallway was dark. The camera has night vision. Everything looked greenish, washed out, the way the world looks when it's not meant to be seen. I scrolled back through the recorded clip. There was something at the far end of the hall, right at the edge of the frame, just outside Mara's door. I sat up straighter. It was just a shape, more of a blur, really. Tall, still, hard to make out at that distance, at that resolution. I watched the clip twice. The figure, if that's what it was, stood there for the full 4 seconds of the recording. It didn't move. It didn't turn. It was just there. And then it was gone, and the clip ended. I told myself it was a glitch, a compression artifact. The camera was cheap and the Wi-Fi signal in that part of the house was weak. These things happen. I pulled up the live feed on my phone. Nothing. I told myself I was being silly, making something out of nothing. I put the phone down and went back to sleep. I didn't go check on Mara. I don't know why. I just didn't. In the morning, Mara came downstairs and climbed onto a stool at the kitchen counter while my wife made coffee. She said it completely casually, the way kids mention things that have already moved on in their heads. She said, "Daddy was in the hallway last night." My wife asked if I'd been up checking on her. I said I had. I'd looked in from the doorway around 3 a.m., but I hadn't gone in. And Mara nodded, like that explained something, and then she asked for orange juice, and that was that. But I had been in bed. I had checked the camera from bed. I had not been in the hallway at 3 a.m. The second night, 3:12 a.m. The second alert came exactly 24 hours later. Same time. 3:12. This time I picked up my phone immediately and watched it live. The figure was there again, but closer now. Maybe halfway down the hallway now instead of at the far end. Same posture, arms at its sides, perfectly still. Still little more than a blur, but undeniably there. I got out of bed, walked down the hall myself. Nothing was there. Mara's door was closed. I cracked it open and stood there for a moment, listening to her breathe. She was fine, asleep. I went back to bed and lay there until it got light. I showed my wife the footage that morning. She watched both clips and said it was probably the camera doing something strange. That night vision does weird things in low light, that hallways are full of shadows. She wasn't dismissing me, exactly. She just wasn't ready to follow where I was already going. The third night, 3:12 a.m. I didn't sleep much that night. On the third night, I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone already open on the camera feed, watching the hallway in real time. The image was still. The hallway was empty. At 3:11 it was empty. And then at 3:12, The figure was there. I didn't see it arrive. There was no motion, no blur, no change in the frame. One moment the hallway was empty. The next moment it wasn't. The figure stood closer to Mara's door now, maybe 10 feet from it, in the same posture as before. Patient. Waiting. I ran out into the hallway myself, stood at the top of the stairs and looked toward her room. Nothing. Just the dark. Just the closed door at the end. But on my phone screen, the figure was right there. I was looking at the same space with my own eyes and seeing nothing. On the camera, it was standing in the middle of the hall, 8 feet away from me. I watched it for almost 2 full minutes. It never moved. And then the recording stopped, and the hallway on my screen was empty again, and I was standing there, alone in the dark, holding my phone. There was a chill in the air, but nothing more. The next morning, I sat with Mara while she ate breakfast. I tried to be easy about it. I asked if she was sleeping okay, if she'd had any bad dreams. She said no. She said the man came again, but that he was quiet and she didn't mind him. I asked her, "What man?" She said, "The one who looks like you. He stands outside my door at night." I asked if he scared her. She thought about it. Actually thought about it, the way kids do when they're trying to be accurate. And then she said no. She said he was just watching. She said he always left before it got light. She said it the way a child describes a habit, like it had been this way for a long time, like she'd already made her peace with it. The fourth night, 3 or 12 a.m., I moved a chair to the hallway, sat in it at the top of the stairs facing Mara's door, phone in my lap, flashlight in my hand. My wife stood in the bedroom doorway for a while and then went back to bed. I don't blame her. There's a point where watching something you can't explain starts to feel like it might make it worse. At 3:12, the figure appeared on my screen. It was standing directly outside Mara's door now, right at the threshold. The camera had been adjusting its exposure over the nights, or maybe the figure had grown more solid, more present, because I could see it clearly this time. The set of the shoulders, the shape of the head, the way it stood with its weight slightly forward, like it was listening. My shoulders, my head, my way of standing. I turned on the flashlight and aimed it down the hall. Nothing. The hallway was empty to my eyes, and on my screen, I was looking at my own face in the dark, looking at my daughter's door. I made myself stand up. I walked toward her room, watching the screen the whole time. The figure didn't react to me, didn't turn, didn't move. It just stood there, focused entirely on the door. The air was cold, freezing actually. When I was close enough to touch the doorknob, I heard Mara's voice from inside. Quiet, unhurried. She said, I know you have to go soon." I pushed the door open. She was sitting up in bed facing the window. She turned and looked at me, not startled, not relieved, just looking the way you look at someone you were expecting. Then she lay back down and closed her eyes. She said, "Good night, Daddy." And something about the way she said it, something about the pause before it, made me feel like she'd chosen the word carefully, like she was being kind. I sat on the floor outside her door until morning. After that, we talked about moving. We talked about getting the camera looked at, getting the house looked at. We talked to Mara's doctor, who said children that age often create elaborate figures, imaginary presences, not quite friends, not quite fears. He said it was normal. He said it would pass. Normal. It would pass. The alerts kept coming. Every night at 3:12, I stopped watching them. Then, last week, Mara did something I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I came into the kitchen and she was drawing at the table, She draws constantly. Animals, houses, people, whole worlds in crayon. I looked over her shoulder at the page. She'd drawn 2 figures. Same height, same build. As much the same face as a 4-year-old can manage. One was labeled in her careful block letters, my name. The other had no label at all. I asked her who the second one was. She looked at both figures for a moment, like she was deciding something. Then she said, "That's the one who comes at night. He's learning you." I asked her what she meant. "Learning me," she said. "So he knows how to be you. So he gets it right." I haven't watched the footage in 6 days. My wife checks it sometimes. I can tell when she has because she goes quiet at dinner and doesn't meet my eyes. I don't ask her what she sees. I'm not sure I want to know how close it's gotten. Mara seems happy. She sleeps well, better than she used to actually. She still asks me to make her eggs in the mornings. She still wants me to read to her at night. Everything is exactly the same as it was before. Except 2 nights ago, I went to kiss her goodnight and she looked up at me for just a moment, too long before she smiled. A careful look. A measuring look. The kind of look you give something when you're checking it against a memory. I keep coming back to what she said. So he gets it right. And I find myself turning that over and over because there's a question buried in it that I can't stop pulling at. If something has been studying me every night, getting closer, getting more accurate, learning the way I stand and the shape of my face and the sound of my voice in the dark. At what point does it get it right enough? At what point does my daughter stop being able to tell the difference? At what point, what if I can't tell the difference either?